Let's explore the background thinking behind the ideas-centered approach for driving creativity to deliver innovation. And recognize this is a scientists and engineers post-rationalization of how this stuff works. This is not how it was presented to me 20 years ago when I first stumbled across the approach. I recognize there are some crazy creativity techniques that actually deliver breakthrough thinking in a very credible way. And I needed to work out how to explain it, how to communicate it to my colleagues in a way that would enthuse them, that would then allow us to embed it within the organization. And it kind of works like this. I've worked in a number of organizations through my career. I've worked in small, medium, large organizations. I've worked in private sector. I've worked in public sector. I've worked in a range of different technologies. I don't care what your organization is, what the sector, what the technology is. If you look at change over time, there is a universal constant out there. And the universal constant is the observation that the world around us is changing at an ever increasing rate. Walk on by, no rocket science here. I know you know this stuff. The rate of change fuels the rate of change. The quicker things happen, cumulatively, the quicker things happen. Things never slow down. And before you know it, you have an exponential takeoff of stuff. And this could be almost any parameter. It could be the economy, it could be politics, much of it fueled by 24-hour news, by social media. And anyone who's close to technology might well recognize this as being what they refer to as Moore's law. If you look at the processing power in your computer and track how that changes over time, the trajectory is genuinely exponential and mind-bogglingly is predicted to continue to be so. And this is great news for any organization that's right-minded, that's creative, that's innovative. Because what it means is, up here, we have an exploding universe of opportunity, or a world of what might be, which is constantly developing and expanding in front of us. And all we have to do, if we're right-minded, creative, innovative, scan that horizon for all those possible changes, grab what takes our fancy, implement it, woof, we're off on our next innovation journey. This is great news. I always say this, for any organization, statistically, this must be true. Even as we come in and out of lockdown, someone somewhere out there in the world today will be developing new processes, new thinking, new technologies that could transform elements of what you do in your organization on a day-to-day basis. Just statistically, it must be true. All we have to do, scan, grab, implement, woof, we're off on our next journey. This is great when it comes to driving transformation. But for every bit of good news, I've got some bad news lurking just around the corner. And the bad news I've got for you here is that we as individuals and collectively as cultures in organizations can't keep up with this rate of change. We're good, but we're not that good. There's my brain there. It's a reasonable brain, not a brilliant brain. It can keep on top of lots, but there's no way it can keep on top of the sum total of everything that's happening out there. And it's kind of worse than that, because although the human race is very successful on this planet, and you can argue around the fringes, I know, with war and crime and what have you, but fundamentally, as a species, the human race is very successful. And we have a number of behaviors and traits locked within every single one of us that contribute to that success, that make us successful. But they say those same behaviors and traits effectively trip us up and slow us down when it comes to creativity and innovation. There are things within us that drive us forward through natural selection, but which stop us when it comes to creativity and innovation. And the most significant of those for me today is that every single one of us effectively makes sense of our worlds by looking backwards. We are fundamentally backward-looking individuals, which sounds like an odd thing to say when you first hear it, but if you think about it, it's obvious. If any one of you has a problem that pops up today, there's the problem that's popped up today. The first thing you're going to do when you're faced with a problem is you're going to look backwards, because you're going to look at past experience, knowledge, training, education, stuff that's happened in your past. You're going to scan through that to see if there's anything in there that could have a positive impact on your problem today. You'll find something, grab it, apply it, and that will then determine your future behavior. So if you think about it, the corollary of that is that your future behavior is determined by your past experience. And if you think about that, your past experience is a tiny fraction of the sum total of knowledge and experience that's out there in the world today. So we can improve over time, but we improve at a much, much slower rate. Because at any moment in time, before we decide what to do next, we always start by looking backwards. And based on that backward-looking perspective, we then decide today how we're going to behave in the future. And if you repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat that backward-looking perspective, what you will eventually do is get an increasing divergence between that world of what might be and what we could call our world of what is. And every organization, because that repeat backward-looking perspective develops its world of what is, and everyone in the organization sits in that world, making decisions, solving problems, generating ideas, but they do it trapped within the prism of the world of what is. And they're trapped in there by an atmosphere of conventional and traditional thinking. And every organization has its world of what is, and everyone within that organization is trapped within that world by that conventional and traditional thinking. It's how we do things around here. If anyone in that organization starts generating ideas that sit outside that world, we dismiss them as being bonkers, ridiculous, outrageous. For goodness sake, where on earth did you come up with that weird idea? Clearly, it's not going to work around here. It's not how we do things. How long have you been here? A week. Oh, for goodness sake, come back in 6 months' time when we've brainwashed you, when we've taught you how to behave in our world, and then you can forget generating these weird ideas that clearly aren't going to work. And then you can become one of us. Is how we systematically suppress, if not kill, creativity and innovation in any organization. And we all do it. I did this with, I've been doing these presentations for a long time. I did it with a group of chief executives some time back. And one of them started feeling uncomfortable at this point, started shuffling around the place. And eventually he said, actually, I feel uncomfortable. He said, I've just realized that yesterday I signed off a code of practice in my organization for the suppression of creativity and innovation. He said, I didn't mean to. It's not what we called it, but it's what it's going to do. I said, crikey, what do you call it? He said, oh, we just simply call it probation. Because what we do on day one, if anyone joins the organization, we basically tell them that they're of little value until they understand how we do things around here. So what we do is move them around the organization to help educate them / brainwash them in order that they too can behave in a manner that's consistent with the rest of us. If at the end of a 6-month period, they demonstrate to us beyond doubt that they can behave in a manner that proves they're one of us in our world of what is, then they can stay. If, however, they insist on generating crazy bonkers ideas which do little more than demonstrate a complete lack of appreciation for the organization, then I'm afraid that they will have to part company with us. It's how we systematically suppress, if not kill, creativity and innovation in any organization. And we all do it. For that bit of bad news, I've got some good news. And the good news is that the world of what is does have some strengths because it gives you consistency. It gives you stability because everyone in the organization knows how we do things around here and can conform to that set of unwritten rules. It's how we do things. In fact, we can write processes and procedures down to make sure we can pass around the place the standardized way in which we're going to operate. If any of you take a holiday and something goes wrong in your absence, don't worry, there are people in the organization who know how we do things around here and therefore can put things right in your absence. So there are strengths to this world of what is. But from time to time, leaders and developing leaders within an organization will look at elements for which they're responsible in this organization and say, you know what, we need to transform some of this. We need to break free and think differently and see if we can't drive innovation. Effectively, what they're looking to do is to escape from this world of what is and grab some of this world of what might be. The snag is we've got mental blocks in the way. There are things that happen inside our heads that effectively lock us inside that world of what is. And these are hardwired in our DNA. This is fight or flight stuff from days gone by, which sounds extreme. But if you think about it, it's true. If you go back long enough, and I mean long enough on a prehistoric timescale, go back to Stone Age days, we learned pretty quickly, if you step out of the cave and do things differently, you could die. So everyone who consistently kept stepping out of the cave, did things differently, didn't learn the lessons, they eventually died. And what you're left with are our ancestors. We are genuinely genetically related to those that successfully learned the value of staying in or close to the cave because it keeps you safe. Now, the world has changed. The world has changed now. You can do things differently in an organization and you're not necessarily going to die. Even management styles have changed now such that they're supportive of people trying to do things different. In fact, organizations say do things differently. They get groups of experts together, tell them to think differently. They nod dutifully, but because they're trapped, they come up with the same old thinking. If you know that these mental blocks exist, They can never be made to go away. But you can then selectively choose to use techniques that will allow you to overcome those mental blocks to drive the innovation process. And these are the techniques that we refer to as the creativity techniques. But by definition, these techniques are going to feel odd because they're unusual. You simply cannot use conventional and traditional techniques to escape from convention and tradition. You have to use unconventional, untraditional techniques, i.e. weird. And the bottom line is, if these techniques don't feel weird, they're not messing with your brain and you're not doing it right. So by definition, these techniques mess with your brain and they feel really weird. And I always say to organizations, if these techniques are too odd for you, if they're too much of a stretch and they're freaking you out, don't worry about them, don't do them. Because there is no shortage of conventional and traditional techniques that effectively will take you up what is the continuous improvement curve. And these conventional and traditional techniques, really powerful, will progressively make this world in which you're trapped a better and better world. But it will always be the same world. It's incrementally making it a better world. And if all you want is a better world, stay with continuous improvement, because there's a whole bunch of logical techniques that we all get our heads around that are simple to apply. But if you want to think differently, if you want breakthrough, if you want to drive innovation, transformation, then you don't want better. What you want is different. And if you want different, you have to seek help using these creativity techniques, because they will effectively allow you to break free from this world in which you're trapped. And you can go in pursuit of a parallel universe in which there is a world where things are transformed. This isn't incremental change, this is step function change. That is what innovation is all about, transformation. Organizations talk a good fight, they talk about innovation and then describe the continuous improvement program to deliver it. The two are fundamentally different. The two programs sit beautifully side by side, but they are quite different. And what we're going to be focusing on in this program of sessions is specifically the creativity techniques to get above those mental blocks. Those mental blocks are effectively the outer reaches of this atmosphere in which everyone's trapped. Now, don't mishear me. I am a big fan of continuous improvement. Continuous improvement genuinely is a wonderful thing. It is just different from the creative approach we're going to be taking. And let me explain why. I hit manufacturing in the mid-1980s, I guess. And at the time, continuous improvement was all the rage. We called it different things. We called it total quality management, TQM. We called it lean. It became Six Sigma. It's all about continuous improvement. And the beauty of continuous improvement is the simplicity, the elegance with which you can explain it. Because basically what you do, if you're looking for change over time, you ask everyone in the organization to look at what they do and see if they can't find ways in which they could do it better. And it doesn't matter how small the incremental change is. If you make enough small incremental changes over a period of time, cumulatively, they add up into quite a sizable change. And if you're really good at continuous improvement, better than the competition, then you will become even better and widen that competitive gap. This is great news. And this approach, simple to explain, is all about making things better. And it is classically viewed as being what they refer to as bottom up. And I say bottom up, I need to explain that, because the best people to identify how to improve things are the people doing the job themselves. So whoever's doing whatever they're doing is best placed to identify how to improve it and also how to implement the idea that comes out. This is a numbers game. You want everyone in the organization to be looking at incrementally improving what they do to make sure cumulatively you get a sizable impact. The weakness of the technique, quite frankly, is the word better, because better points at the world of what is in which everyone is trapped. So everyone is sat in this world, and what we're doing with continuous improvement is progressively making this a better and better world, but it is always the same world. What we're saying here with creativity is that from time to time, we need to challenge the brain to allow us to escape from that world of what is. What we're looking for is not incremental change, it's step function change to overcome those mental blocks. Forget that world. Let's go in pursuit of a parallel universe in which there is a world where things are transformed. Having found that world, we then probably want to embed it and do incremental improvement on it. From time to time, someone may well come up and say, I tell you what, we need another step function change. Let's forget this world and go in pursuit of a parallel universe where things are transformed. And then let's do incremental improvement on that. So we end up with a combination of continuous improvement and what we could call discontinuous improvement. These step function changes here. And this is our major focus. You do not need many step function changes in an organization for transformation in a year. You need hundreds and hundreds of incremental changes. You do not need, fingers of one hand, how many step function changes you need in an organization typically. If you do not need many of them, choose them strategically. And if you're going to choose them strategically, this has to be driven top down. This is a leadership responsibility, accountability, to drive step function change in an organization. It's not about making things better. It's about doing things differently. And different is therefore the key word here. What we're effectively saying is, forget this world in which you're trapped. Let's go in pursuit of a parallel universe. Having found it, follow me. I'll take you there and show you how to make it work. That takes leadership skills. Continuous improvement can be devolved on a bottom-up basis. Step function change, creativity, feeding innovation, transformation has to be sponsored and driven by someone senior enough to make a difference in the organization. It has to be driven top down. Huge difference. And what you're looking for is a combination of the two. The two sit beautifully together, but you must understand the difference between them. If you get it right, what you end up with is continuous improvement, but then from time to time, you end up with step function changes. And if you get the combination right, then that is what represents an innovative organization. And that is our focus for this program of events coming over the coming months. Hopefully that sets it all in context. Let's get stuck in.